Are we recording?
Yes, I pointed at you going, hey. So, John, welcome to our loyal audience, loyal listeners out there. Or as I like to say, and in the words of my hero, Obi-Wan Kenobi, hello there.
Hello there. Welcome to the Ludic Lounge, ladies and gentlemen. This is our proud episode 2. Bit off to a stumbling block because my dumbass doesn't know how to press a button.
Okay. Yes, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone and anyone in between, to Numero Dos. So on today's agenda, John and I will be just, shooting the shit a little bit. We'll be talking about what's been going on since episode 1. For those of you loyal listeners, which we thank you, it'll be a nice little recap. And for those of you just tuning in for the first time, John and I have been best friends, and by I mean Anthony. You can call me Anthony. I'll go by Anthony. We've been best friends since the Dark Ages. In fact, it was before the Dark Times.
Before the Empire?
Exactly. And so one day we just decided, hey, we're in quarantine. You're in quarantine. Everybody's in quarantine. So why not just record our personal thoughts? And
just like everybody else.
Just like everybody else.
Because we're still, I haven't ordered a podcast microphone. I doubt you have, but apparently Amazon sold out on those. I think that tells you what everybody's priority is. It's just like, well, might as well.
Look, John, podcasting is an essential business at this time, at this junction.
You don't have to leave home too much.
And I'm not even wearing pants.
I never wore pants, so this is
the day is mine. The day is mine. And I'm not wearing any panties.
Is that right? You filthy bastard.
Well, the overall theme, like John and I try to have, is going to be somehow John and I got in a conversation earlier this week. Maybe it was yesterday.
I'll tell you what it was. It was I saw a wonderful piece of art from one of the many comic book artists that I follow. A gentleman named Sean Phillips. He's won multiple Eisner Awards, which for those uninitiated is essentially the Oscar for the comic book industry. He drew up some lovely prints. I think he's turning them into prints.
I hope so.
They'll be available for purchase on a local computer near you. Hopefully on this very computer or phone that you are listening to this on. But he drew up some wonderful pieces on Blade Runner, specifically Blade Runner 2049 and the original Blade Runner. And they are stunning works.
Stunning.
And Anthony and I we're like most guys our age, I think we have
gals.
And gals, excuse me. Thank you. Most folks our age, have this obsession with Blade Runner, in part because it is, one of those fundamental cyberpunk texts.
Yeah.
And, the brilliance of the performances in those, particularly of Rutger Hauer and Harrison Ford. And
everybody in that movie, honestly.
Yeah.
And even if not even just the original Blade Runner, but 2049, like a lot of people weren't too happy with it. I know a few of them, but honestly, I enjoyed that movie very, very much. It took me like 2 watch throughs, I will admit. Because the first one, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, whoa, there's a lot of things happening, a lot of things spinning in front of me. But the second time when you're actually sitting down and maybe paying a little bit more attention, not getting, the flashlight of all the sci-fi effects shown in your face there, and you're actually like understanding the story, understanding all the themes, or at least some of the themes, which is why I always appreciated Blade Runner to begin with, because it's not just one theme and go. All right, there's many different layers, many different things to ponder about in this cinematic universe.
My relationship with Blade Runner has changed over the years very significantly. At least the most ready, the thing that comes to my mind immediately is the relationship between Rachel and Deckard. Because I remember when I watched Blade Runner for the first time, I thought the relationship was a lot more equal than I think it might be. because like the most recent time I watched it, and I was just thinking of Sean Young's performance anyway, because I was trying to remember her name. Her name was just slipping out of my mind.
Rachel.
Rachel. But there's wonderful nuance in Sean Young's performance, and seeing how she interacts with Deckard is complicated and complex, and you don't really know how to root for it, I think. Because like the last time I watched it, it was just very much like, and this is post the Me Too movement and a more vocal conversation about all this stuff, but it was just, the relationship was just like, he's really just pushing himself a lot, and it was just it was eerie to me, because it's like, I'm so used to Harrison Ford being the charmer who everyone is willing to go with him in these escapades, because he's just that charming and handsome, and forever will be that way because it's Harrison freaking Ford.
He's so dreamy.
I think that honestly, I think that's why Deckard has such an appeal to Ford himself, because I think there's like, how often do you see Ford get those kind of complicated, you don't really know how to read this person character, because I think
normally it's just punching Nazis and yelling "Get off my plane."
Yeah, and that's not to sell Indy short, because I think Indy can be complex. At least
the president of the United States, John,
or president. All those Tom Clancy movies.
I'm sorry, John. I'm just here to distract you as you give very nuanced opinions about all things important. So for those of you who are unaware of the dynamic between John and I, John is the more sophisticated, pontificating, polite, other adjectives that start with the letter P that it's not coming to me at this time, whereas I'm just sit here and I juggle in front of the camera. But for those of you listening on an audio format, you cannot see me juggling in front of the camera, but just know I'm sitting here juggling just for you, our loyal listeners.
We're like halfway between a zany morning show and like an NPR dialogue.
Oh man, if this was a zany morning show, that'd be so great. Yo, it's Zippy and the dude.
It's the dude. How you all doing? Especially you ladies out there, because I'm
wait, why are you going to be the dude? Why can't I be the dude? Why am I Zippy?
Because the dude abides, man.
God damn it. I walked into that one.
That was a hand-fisted ass reference, but I'll take it. But we already we introduced the topic of the day is the top 5 movies to drink Scotch, right?
I don't think
did we fall off into like a flavor? Yes. It's my own damn fault. It
is your damn fault. Let me tell you why. Because I was going to introduce it, kind of give a nice, nuanced, like little introduction for us to gently land the plane on, and then you got to come in. And you're like, no, I'll explain the entire story, and then you just reach into the depths of your beautiful mind, Russell Crowe, and just came out the other side with just a knowledge bomb for you, our loyal fans.
And Keanu Reeves has joined us, ladies and gentlemen.
I was going for smooth jazz radio disc jockey, but I'll take Keanu.
I just always assume Keanu because it's Keanu and he's great.
I mean, that's fair. He is a very great guy from all things that I know about him.
But back to the plane that we need to land.
Jesus. At this point, it's a helicopter.
I know. It keeps spinning in circles. I showed Anthony these Blade Runner pieces by Sean Phillips, and Anthony described...
Sean Phillips, John?
It's some bitch. And Anthony described Blade Runner 2049, as he was saying, a very complicated movie, as a movie that you want to sit down and enjoy with a nice glass of scotch. So
absolutely.
We will be talking about our top 5 favorite movies that we would drink scotch to.
And of course, we're both super prepared and came up with many a list that we have, of course, written down and, of course, memorized and, of course, can give our nice opinions about. And by no means will be just spitballing off the top of our heads on.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, I have no comment. We kind of just came up with this off the fly. I think that's where we work our best magic. And if you got a problem with that, we will have a
we got 2
number.
words for you. Thank you.
I was going to say we have a 1-800 number for complaints, and comments. We will provide that at an undetermined date when it exists.
And you can always reach John at his Twitter handle at.
Oh, we'll give that at the end of the show. I mean, we got to boost those numbers, man.
They are rookie numbers, that is for sure.
Always be whatever the hell Alec Baldwin said in Glenn Ross. A, B, C, always be closing. There we go. I got it.
There you go. Okay. I was not going to be able to help you land that, man.
I landed the damn plane.
I was going to leave you hanging because I just high and dry, man, because I had no clue what you were pulling there.
Just let me have my admiration of random Alec Baldwin performances. Because when he's not being a giant asshole, he's usually pretty good at acting.
Wait, you said Adam Baldwin or Alec Baldwin?
Alec.
Oh, Alec. Okay, I thought you said Adam Baldwin, and I was going to have a conversation with you.
No, not that one. Unrelated Baldwin.
Unrelated Baldwin.
Too many Baldwins. But before we get into our top 5, Anthony, how's the last few days been for you? What have you been watching? What have you been reading? What you been listening to? Give us.
I have been watching on Netflix the Netflix. I was going to say television series, but I guess that's kind of moot at this point. The Netflix original series, The Last Kingdom. I've been watching it for quite a while now, but the newest season just dropped. It is a nice kind of a period television drama. I believe it takes place around the 8th century over in what is to be England, essentially, and all the surrounding territories from that. It's kind of like the television show Vikings that had some acclaim that many people enjoyed. So it's kind of akin to that. So if you really dug that show or shows that are very similar in those themes, you would definitely enjoy this. There's a lot of political intrigue within it. The actors, again, I couldn't name you a single actor. I've never seen them in anything else, but they just do such a good job at portraying their roles assigned to them. And the range of all these actors and actresses, there's not a bad actor or actress on here. Like, everyone gives it their all. Everyone is actually doing an excellent job. I don't know if it got any Academy acclaim or anything like that, or the Netflix TV show version of whatever a Tony or an Oscar would be, essentially. But
it would be a Golden Globe. Golden
Globe? Okay. Yeah. I trust you.
I hope I trust me too. Just to be honest, I don't remember off the top of my head. What are award shows? Do they exist anymore? I don't know.
Right, at this point, why do we even have award programming? Ooh, hot take. But essentially, I feel like we need a producer, a third body, to just yell stuff in our ear, in an earwig, when we're say just random things like that. So they go, "That's actually the Golden Globe Awards," and we sound very, very more prepared than we actually are.
Can we get Ron Howard?
Yes, actually.
That way you can narrate our show like you did Arrested Development. Actually, it was this. These two were idiots.
The impression I just gave was kind of edging towards David Lynch for some reason. I don't know what was going on there.
You know what we should do? Is just if we ever need a correction, we'll just cut into the audio and it'll just be some random impression that we do. It's just "Hello, this is David Lynch. These two were wrong because of X, Y, and Z. John, and I'm right because I'm David Lynch."
God, we're going to have a total of one listener, and somehow it's still going to get to the David Lynch, and we're still going to get sued and get hit with a cease and desist.
It's all parody. We can get away with it. I went to law school.
That is accurate. That is completely accurate. Jeez. So that's what I've been watching, folks. Really good. I'm down to the last episode right now. I was just watching before I jumped on with John. Also, what I've been playing in my spare time, I've actually been doing, and I'll touch upon it a little bit here, and maybe towards the end we'll go into full detail. John and I are planning to do something pretty special for our loyal listeners. Well, really for just us, for shits and giggles, but you guys can play along and listen along as well. To where we're going to be doing something pretty special. It might be like a Twitch thing, or we might just record and post it on YouTube, or something in that regard. We haven't had the all the nitty-gritty details pinned down, but needless to say, it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll think it's a lot of fun. Hopefully, if you guys ever catch it live, if we do a Twitch or Mixer or whatever have you, you'll join in, have some fun. If not, if you just watch it at some point, just for laughs. We don't want anything. We don't want donations. Well, that's a lie. Of course, I always want donations, but
you want donations of love.
Donations of love. Thank you.
That's what we're looking for, really.
Just so much donations. Just big old 9-inch donations all on our face.
This is cut to.
Rewind. No. Fuck it. We're doing live. We don't have the time to sit here and edit every little thing, John. We make a mistake, we get called out on it. That's how we're gonna roll, because we're good, honest people.
Plus, it's funnier that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Way funnier that way.
But Anthony and my plan for this secret project will be unveiled soon. We're still just working out the kinks.
So many kinks.
A lot of kinks.
Just so many kinks.
A lot of approvals. All kinds of approvals have been going on.
So much bureaucratic red tape. Let me tell you. The red tape on here. Oh, speaking of red tape, I've also been, when I wasn't watching The Last Kingdom, I've also been doing a rewatch of West Wing. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. Which was a television, huge event, essentially like the mid to late 90s to early 2000s, essentially. It takes place in a pseudo 90s modern day, 90s modern day.
It was in time with the time, or in period with the time it came out.
Yeah.
It just was like this alternate reality where a fictionalized president existed. It was more or less our system, right? Just
Yeah, just kind of, it gave you a glimpse inside of what happens inside of the White House, decisions that are made, what the president does, what Congress does, what the Senate does, just the inner workings of politicking, essentially. It's a great show. I definitely recommend it to anyone out there. It's just a brilliant show. It's a smart show. It's well written, and again, that's why they probably got. Well, they did get, and that's why they deserved all the Golden Globes, as I learned from our friend John here. All the awards. It's really great. Check that out if you'd like. If not, it's no skin off my ass, because I'm enjoying it.
All right. Any games you're playing? Or?
The only game I am playing is currently the secret project that I'm working on and doing a lot of customizations in my spare time.
So we can't say what it is yet.
But I am working. They got me working day and night, bump, and working 9 to 5, because everybody's working for the weekend.
No.
Can you work it? Let me work it. Put my thing down, flip it, and reverse it. What other songs have work in the title, John? Those are the ones just off the top of my jukebox. Beautiful mind.
Yeah, I'm not my dad, so I can't really pull it out of my ass.
I mean, you could. That'd be highly impressive.
I mean, yeah, it would be. Unfortunately, I cannot do that because I'm pathetic.
You're not pathetic, John. You're just a lovely, beautiful soul.
I'll just keeps whispering those sweet nothings into my ear. I need them like life. For myself,
I was whispering them in the Zoom ear that I have on my computer.
Oh, okay. I thought for a minute you got possessed in like Reagan did in The Exorcist.
Did Reagan get possessed in The Exorcist?
Your mother sent you.
And I just pictured, are we talking Ronald Reagan, or was the character's name Reagan? Because good Lord, now I just picture Ronald Reagan getting possessed by a demon. And John, what would that sound like?
Your mother sucks cocks in hell. Bleh.
Oh, that last part was not needed.
Oh, that's what happens in the scene, damn
I
it.
know that's what happens in the scene, but that was just so, like, it was fine. It was kind of borderlining, like, this is a little dark. And then you just hit him with the, Ronald Reagan putting something in or around his mouth.
I did. Yeah, bye. Where are we going now? Oh, this is fantastic. So much sausage.
Oh, John.
Oh, who cares? He's dead.
Jesus Christ.
Edit point.
Edit point. Now we're going to get, like, ex-Secret Service on us. Like,
oh, shit. Yeah, right? I mean, that's going to be
man.
fun. Well, I mean, if I disappear in between this and the next episode, thank you all and good night. You've been a wonderful audience. Tip your waitress. Try the veal. For myself, been watching a couple movies, a couple TV shows.
What have you been watching, John?
Well, Dipper, I've been watching. I forget because I've done so much cocaine.
Jesus.
Yeah, no. Well, we're
point.
Edit point again. My fiance and I watched a movie called Assassination Nation a couple days ago.
That sounds like a shitty 90s grunge band.
Actually, yeah, you're not wrong there, but probably more like a current, like a hard punk band that would come out now, and it's like all girls. Because that's essentially the premise of a movie. It's like a girl gang movie that's a little bit of a social commentary. Because the premise is you're following like 4 high school girls who get caught in this town-wide hacking of individuals in their town, and chaos ensues as a result of everything in the cloud kind of just being unleashed. So it's a fairly interesting social commentary about, you know, what the nature of technology plays in our society now, and how it is kind of so what's the word I'm looking for? Just embedded in our day-to-day interactions, and how it causes all kinds of crazy nonsense once it becomes publicly aware. And it's also a very violent movie because, as you can imagine, when shit like that gets put out into the open, people get very angry about it.
Gattaca.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's a very well acted movie. You know, a lot of smaller names. The 4 female leads are younger actresses whose names honestly, unfortunately, escape me. But I would highly recommend it. It's a cool black comedy thriller satire ish. My fiance and I have also been watching steadily one of my favorite shows, Columbo.
One of our favorite shows, John.
That too. I'm sorry, honey. I looked it up. I was part. I think I can consider myself this part of this early Renaissance finding of Columbo, because the last couple of years the show kind of just found a new audience. I don't necessarily know how, but I don't even remember how I came across the show, but it's just great. How do you catch a mysteries with Peter Falk, and various guest stars of the 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
Which has been fun because my girlfriend will or fiance, excuse me, will look at me as who the hell is this? It's just oh, they were famous way back when for doing X, Y, and Z. Oh, okay.
Pretty much.
So we're almost through the first season on that. Beyond that, I've been reading, a lot of books and comics. I am mostly through John Scalzi's new trilogy, the Interdependency Sequence, which unfortunately is a little bit too much like our real world, where a futuristic society who uses a form of transport called the flow, which allows spaceships to travel between space systems, starts collapsing, and none of the planets where people are inhabited can actually sustain life. So once the flow is done, people are in trouble. So it's about how do we deal with that oncoming chaos.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And what I love about Scalzi is how brutally honest he can be, and how he can make you laugh and worry about the situation at the same time. And that's one of the things I love most about Scalzi's work, is that he is, it doesn't seem like he's taking it seriously, but he's taking it incredibly seriously, but it's also funny as hell at the same time.
Yeah.
So I've also been reading a lot of comics.
So I've actually, before you jump on your comic list, I actually read the first book in the series that John was talking about.
Please.
And what I appreciated about it, again, I read it a couple of years ago at this point, but from what I remember on it, it was kind of a nice, I can't think of the word I'm searching for, but it was a nice kind of not inside look, but a nice look at like a parallel, like John was talking about, of how like our world state right now, right? If we lose, since we're relying too much on, let's say, like oils and all, just one kind of a resource, once that runs out, essentially what does the world look like? What will the world look like? So it kind of does this nice little parallel in the science fictional universe. And it doesn't get like super political as far as like, well, hey, let's not use any more oils anymore. Like, it doesn't talk about today's society or anything like that. But when I was reading it, that was one thing that popped in my head, was just this nice parallel.
It does allude to the fact when a dumbass is a dumbass, you call him for being a dumbass and then move the hell on.
Yeah, pretty much.
The other thing I've been reading a little heavily the last couple of days is one of Marvel's more popular ongoing comics right now, The Immortal Hulk. So it's the current Hulk comic that they have. And it's spun out of the murder of Bruce Banner and the emergence of a new aspect of the Hulk. Because something that the movies don't really address, and the comics have had, in the characters 50 plus years, the comics had time to deal with it, is the fact that Banner has dissociative identity disorder. And that manifests in different versions of the Hulk. So the Immortal Hulk, or at least is this new one who comes out only at night, is a little bit more nonverbal with Banner, and is essentially a little bit ambiguous on where he falls in the superhero world. Or it's definitely leaning more into the horror aspect, the body horror aspect of the Hulk, and leaning to a lot more of a horror focus than I think most people would probably expect.
Horror in what kind of a sense?
More like body horror, like I said. So it's just like grotesque things happening to people. Like the first issue, there's 6 collections out now, at least in the paperback. I would probably recommend getting like the hardcovers, because they collect 2 of those in one, and it's a little bit more bang for your buck. But the first issue, honestly, is one of the best first issues I've ever read, because the premise basically is that, at least for the initially, and then it gets more complicated, is that when Banner is killed, he dies for good until nightfall, and then Hulk comes back and brings him back and avenges whatever got Banner killed. So it's not necessarily all the time, he's avenging Banner. It's right. Banner finds himself in a situation which leads to him getting killed, and then Hulk comes out to solve the problem that got Banner killed. The art is phenomenal. The book's written by a guy named Al Ewing, and the majority of the art's done by a guy named Joe Bennett. And the full reveal of the Hulk, I won't spoil it, but when you finally see this version of the Hulk, you get the gravitas, and it's done in a way where you really appreciate it. The Bennett's version of the Hulk is always this dominating force. He barely fits in the page. You know, it always feels like he's about to just kind of like burst from the page right at you. So I honestly, it's one of the most incredible books out right now. You don't really need to know much outside of just starting from number one.
Which is important, because I feel like with comics, and again, this isn't like a hot take. I mean, a lot of people have kind of noticed this with comics a lot of times, especially just for a lot of people not in the know. It's just kind of tough knowing, like, well, I'm really interested in, I really want to see more Hulk, but I don't know when to jump in, because I feel like, okay, well, this is issue 252. Do I have to read all 251 issues of Hulk Weekly?
Yeah, just like Stanley said, every Marvel comic should be somebody's first. And,
absolutely.
That's not necessarily true, but in the case of Immortal Hulk, if all you know is at least the Hulk from the movies, then you should be okay. The series will tell you what you need to know, and when in doubt, Wikipedia. But
when in doubt, wiki it out.
Pretty much, yeah. That's our radio show jingle for this afternoon. Game wise, I'm still kind of playing a lot of the same stuff, dealing with Persona 5, which is a little bit of a challenge because I'm a little overwhelmed because there's so freaking much to do.
It's a huge game, and that was just one of my biggest takeaways, was just how big the game was, and that's why it got to a point. I think we talked about this last week too. It's just like, oh boy, like I don't know how I'm gonna get through all of this.
So I might. I started Super Mario Odyssey because I wanted something a little bit more simpler, and that's not to say that Super Mario Odyssey isn't a tough game. It's just I appreciate the simplicity of what they want me to do.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, it's complicated to play because you have to figure out timing and you have to use a little bit of skill, but it's a appreciated change of pace from having to manage basically a school life while trying to deal with an existential threat of whatever the hell is happening in Persona 5 that week. The other thing, and before we get on to the top 5 for the week, I wanted to talk about Final Fantasy VII because I've been conflicted.
Oh yeah. So off screen, off air, if you will, John and I have been talking about the Final Fantasy VII remake. Now, for myself, I never played any of the Final Fantasies growing up. It just, for some reason, never clicked. I started with this will be a topic for a later time, but needless to say, by the time I got my PlayStation, I had one RPG, and it was Legend of Dragoon, which was a Final Fantasy VII knockoff, what people lovingly refer to it as. So that was my jump into that kind of RPG. And John, what about you? Did you play any of the Final Fantasies in your youth?
I've played it at least 2 to the best of my memory. I started with 8, so I think honestly between the two, because you were born 1990, I was 91.
Yeah.
I think we just missed that kind of golden spot to catch Final Fantasy VII. So by the time I was old enough to play one of those, it had already moved on to 8, and 8 was when I think of Final Fantasy, 8 is what I think of. Part of that's also due to like Kingdom Hearts, which takes a lot of the Final Fantasy characters and does a whole lot of different things with them, including the Final Fantasy VII cast. but I don't know if they're the most accurate representation of what those characters are in context of Final Fantasy. I've also played,
for sure.
I think the one I played the most of was Final Fantasy X.
Okay.
I think I was of the age when it came out, almost beat it, and then it was one of those blockbuster rentals where you just run out of time. And on top of that,
and for those of you playing along at home, Blockbuster was a movie rental / video game rental place that you would go happen upon on a Friday night instead of Netflix and all these streaming services.
Yeah, we really showed our age on this one, huh? Take a drink.
I was just thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, how many people here would actually probably know what Blockbuster is?
I mean, it's still referenced enough, I think. Right?
I mean, I guess the Captain Marvel movie kind of helped since it was kind of there.
Yeah, it does. But those are honestly the only two Final Fantasies that stick out to me. And the reason that I wanted to bring up Final Fantasy is I just wanted to talk through my issues on air. Because Anthony and I played the demo.
Yes.
And we played it on my recommendation just to kind of figure it out. And we were both ultimately, and I hope you don't mind me speaking for you, I was a little bit cold on it.
That's fair. That's
just
fair.
Based on the demo. And I was very frustrated in playing it. I guess I was just having a lot of difficulty managing this kind of hack slash yet team combat, which it's very much more Kingdom Hearts, and I know how to play Kingdom Hearts. I mean,
yeah,
I beat Sephiroth on the hardest difficulty in Kingdom Hearts 2. I know how to play Kingdom Hearts.
Whoa, John just threw his big dick down on that one.
Yeah, I know. Because I fucking earned that shit, damn it. I earned it.
So essentially, after playing the demo in itself it's the original Final Fantasy VII, to my understanding, was a turn-based RPG where essentially turn-based meaning, you would put a command in for your party to attack or do magic damage or heal or whatever have you, then your enemy would, and so on and so forth.
And that's the majority of the Final Fantasy games up to a certain point.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas in this new one, it's a little bit of that because you can switch between party members, but it's more in the moment fighting. It's a lot more almost action RPG in a sense. And one of the harder things to do, and what I found in the demo and what John was talking about, is that and not just us, a lot of people who review the game either professionally or just for kicks and giggles. It was super difficult jumping from person to person. You would have to go party member to party member to do certain things. Like one of your protagonists is a brawler, so he's going to be your tank. He's going to be doing a lot of the melee damage. But if you have turrets like way up, 10 feet away, 10 feet up, you can't hit him with your melee character. So you have to switch to one of your ranged characters and figure out that system, all while still getting attacked.
Yeah. So it's just I think the demo, the section of the game that they gave us for the demo, I think ultimately was a little bit more frustrating than a good place to kind of ease somebody into that universe.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I think that's where I was with it. I imagine you're the same, Anthony.
Yeah. I will say, while the combat was a little bit chunky and just in the demo, felt a little off. I could see it where, like, if I put a few hours into where I get the hang of it and where it would flow a lot better. But honestly, and John and I were in agreement on this, and this is where I'll speak for John a little bit. Like, it is one of the most beautiful games I have ever seen. And I'm not just using that, as just a general term, like a lot of people say, because I can't think of professional when it over exaggerates like that, but I know it's an actual term. Anyway, it just passed my mind. So, but literally, this is just a beautiful, like, you're almost watching a live action movie, a live action anime. It's so flowing, it's so nice, and for the most part, the small tidbits of voice acting we did get were just well done, at least in my opinion.
I agree. And you set up a pretty great segue, in that, I will say that a lot of the criticism I've seen at least graphic wise, is that the named characters get a lot of love, but the environments and the other NPCs not so much. But
Yeah.
I think that it helps get to the thing I wanted to talk to you about the most, is that there was so much effort put into getting those characters to a place where they were suitable for this console generation. And what got me thinking that maybe I had misjudged the game is that I saw some fan art from a lovely artist named Jen Bartel, who is a fan of the series, played the original game, and is playing this remake, and had a lot of emotional connection, in part because they're really upping the relationship between Aerith and Tifa, two of the female characters in the game, who are ostensibly the love interests to Cloud. But it's kind of played so that maybe they're dating each other, and Jen kind of leaned into it hardcore. And it's not just the I don't bring that up for the titillation part of it, because I'm a dumb white guy. What her art showed me is that there is an emotional part of this game that I missed just by limiting it to the demo, because in part it's due to the quality of the artist, in that she clearly put in a lot of effort into conveying these characters accurately. Even if it is just a little bit more fan servicey for herself, there's clearly something there, and it's something that a lot of people are feeling, and it's just probably more a reflection on myself that I can't really feel it, but I want to see what these people are experiencing. And funny enough, I tweeted that at Jen Bartel, saying, your art is making me want to play the game, because I feel like there is something I am missing, and I can see it in your art.
Yeah.
And she said, it feels, she replied and said that, the remake fills in a lot of the gaps that the game originally couldn't really do. So you get more of that character interaction. You get that emotional response. So I think at the end of the day, I don't know if I'm going to jump into the game immediately, because I know it's falling into the whole multi-disc, multi-part, whatever nonsense that's coming up. And that's honestly, I think, one of the chief reasons you and I were turned off as well, is that we knew we weren't getting a start to finish game. Yeah,
because the original Final Fantasy game, for those of you not in the know, essentially was a 4-disc saga. 4 discs, and that was the complete Final Fantasy game. I may have misread this, may have misheard this, so please forgive my ignorance on it. But essentially, disc 1 of the original Final Fantasy VII was on this one, took place mainly on this hub called Midgar, essentially. And in this hub, you would do various side quests and things like that, and main quest stuff. And from my understanding, the Final Fantasy VII remake is just basically taking all those, all those side quests, main quests, just from this one particular place, instead of, and there's nothing after it per se. Like, it just wraps up where disc 1, I would assume, would end. And because of that, a lot of people were saying that it felt, a lot of professional critics like US Gamer, who I follow, which, if you're listening to this, you enjoy video games, you should follow as well. But a lot of those folks were saying essentially that it felt like they were trying to stretch out the game at time, the remake, just by filling it with side quests that don't really matter at all, and were just simple fetch quests, and just little things that had no impact in any particular manner, and that they just put it in there because they needed to stretch out this game to 30 hours or so.
And a lot of that is the fetch quests and stuff. I know games still do stuff like that to an extent, but I mean, the RPG genre, if you can call it a genre, I guess, it in a way has moved on from doing something as simple as that. Side quests are expected to be a lot more complex and fulfilling.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm very conflicted. I don't think I'll do it right now, in part because I'm kind of juggling way too many games that I should finish first.
Yeah, that's fair.
And part of me wants to wait until I know I can have that full experience. But do you feel as conflicted about it as I seem to be?
For sure. Like for me, one of the biggest things is the price tag, right? Like it's $60, and if I'm going to get invested in this series, does that mean I have to pay $60 for the next part of the remake? So disc 2, and then another 60 for disc 3, then another 60 for disc 4.
Well, I was reading. I just saw an update on IGN talking about some of the game developers. I can actually pull up the article right now, but in short, it just so I can get names right at least. But the short version is that the Final Fantasy remake team is trying to figure out how they are going to continue expanding, at least expanding the remake, I should say.
Right.
The co-director, I believe, Nomura, Tetsuya Nomura. He essentially said that it depends on what we want to do. Do we want to do it big and take more time, or do smaller chunks in less time? And his preference is to do it in lesser time. So I get the feeling that maybe it's going to be a one-time $60 purchase, and then maybe you're just buying DLC that fills up the rest of the game.
And that's totally fair, right? And that's fair because DLC is a whole nother bear when it comes to video games. But again, you're still paying, $60 for just the vanilla game, $80 for the deluxe edition, which comes with some stuff apparently. But then again, so you're going to shell out $60 to $80 one time, and then DLC that's going to cost you what? At a minimum $10, at a maximum another $30.
And you also run into the whole, we're unfortunately, I think, in the last dying gasps of this console generation. So I think probably we'll get some things for this year, like the really big releases, like Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, like Avengers. But I think starting probably 2021, and this is honestly, this is thoughts that I have pre-COVID, because I don't know what COVID-19 is going to do impact-wise on games. I mean, we've seen Last of Us Part 2 get delayed, but now it has a release date again.
Yeah.
So it's
pushed back to June, and then Ghost of Tsushima's July. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, things are getting delayed left and right, and certain things will be canceled outright for this year. Comic-Con, for instance. That's a done deal. There's no way they're going to do it again later in the year. But when it comes to games, I think maybe this honestly. I think one of the things I was thinking is that even pre-COVID, we were probably going to deal with a Final Fantasy VII remake that started on PS4, ends on PS5.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. It's going to go next gen.
And the benefit is that PS5 is going to have some backwards compatibility,
but it's only the top X amount of popular games, so it's not going to be. But obviously, the Final Fantasy remake will be a part.
It's going to get grandfathered in no matter what because of the inherent popularity of Final Fantasy VII. But I think now that we're dealing with we're not post Corona yet, but we can think about what happens. I think we've seen the extension of life on the current generation just for a little bit, maybe a year at most, I would bet.
Well, the other problem too is the next gen, the PS5 is looking at a retail of $500 to $560 is what estimates are.
Yeah.
So because of that, Sony's going to be doing a limited release because their official statement is that they're going to be doing a small release because they're not sure if people are going to actually buy it because of that price tag, which is a very interesting business proposal there. But I obviously have they're Sony. They've been in business for a while now, so I am just a regular old guy. So I'm not going to tell those guys how to do their business. But,
and I mean, we both lack for like industry experience on that. So we're
big time. Yeah.
we're really swinging for the fences here. But I mean, we'll see. I guess. I mean, that's all we can do, right? And plus, on top of the whole, that $500, $600 price tag, we're dealing with, all the societal change that's just coming out of it. So it's just like, who the hell knows? It might be, honestly, it might just be smarter to just keep developing the console and just leave people with what they got so far. But I mean, that's just me saying, be more people minded than, revenue minded. But
but it's at the point now, like, especially if you look at it, and again, the business rivalry from Microsoft to Sony isn't where it used to be at all, even just in the last generation. But it's still to that point where Microsoft's going to come out with a new shiny toy, so Sony has to come out with a new shiny toy, just because that's just the way it has to be.
And then Nintendo's just in the back saying, "Fuck you, I'm working."
Yeah, pretty much.
Because they released the Switch Lite, and that's probably what will, if you can get a Switch.
If you can actually get a Switch. They did release the Nintendo Switch Lite, but Nintendo's on its own. They don't follow the standard release date and release format as Microsoft and Sony, which is smart because they're more of a niche concept at this point.
Nintendo knows who their audience is, and they know what they feel comfortable doing and what they want to do. And they're playing smart about it by re-releasing a lot of older stuff too. And I know that's limited to
stuff like that.
Sorry,
like ports of older games onto like for example, the Final Fantasies are getting ported over. Just about all of them are getting ported over to the Switch.
Yeah, I imagine they'll stop at like 6.
Well, I mean, they're all the way up to, if I remember correctly, there's 10s there for sure. I think 10 and 10.2, 12 I think is on there. So I mean, it's pretty much a lot of them.
I was thinking more along the lines of the Super Mario releases that they're.
Which they're rumored to do a lot of recreations. Is that the term? I get
Would we call them remakes too? I mean,
I guess for lack of better terms, like essentially remakes of like the old standard Mario games.
Like the GameCube stuff and some of the Wii stuff. Mario 64,
right?
Which again, that shows our age.
Right.
God, I feel like an old man, and I'm not even 30 yet. Jesus, I should just shut up. But yeah, I mean, that I wanted to just voice that out about Final Fantasy. It's been on the forefront of my mind a lot, and it's just like I want to know. Part of me thinks it's just FOMO, but I don't know.
I mean, possibly.
I mean, it'll just require me to shut up and put my money where my mouth is and play the damn game.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, my thing is I'll get the remake like maybe around Black Friday if it drops to like $20 or something where it's more manageable for me. Because it's just, for me, it doesn't make sense. Because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get invested in it. I'm going to love it. And then I'm going to end up shelling out $60 for each installment. And that just doesn't seem very wise at this time, honestly.
Yeah. That might be where I go, but you make me feel better about it at least.
You make me feel like a natural gamer.
Oh my God. You did not just do that.
I did. I went there.
Oh, man. Alrighty. On that note, transition. It's time for the Super Rockin' Top 5.
Super Rockin' Top 5.
I feel like we should edit out the mouth noises.
I'm not going to do much for editing, John. We're going to do this live, damn it.
We'll do it live. Fuck it, we'll do it live. We'll do it live, God damn it. Okay, so top 5 movies to enjoy with a Scotch.
Absolutely. John, would you like me to go first? Would you like to go first? How do you want this to happen?
Uh, I, I'm more than happy to go first if you're feeling so inclined.
Now I'm going to go first so you don't steal my thunder.
All right, fair enough.
So this is in no particular order, sort of. So because I'm not going to sit here and try to list off that this is the best ever, this is the best ever, because I'll probably end up saying that for all 5 picks.
Yeah, and the nature of the list just makes it so that it's more just like, here are 5 things you can enjoy with a Scotch, as opposed to here's 5 movies in increasing quality plus increasing Scotch. I mean,
yeah.
We're not that sophisticated right now.
Not at all. Not at all. So no particular order. I would say essentially any classic noir film, like any Humphrey Bogart. More in particular for me, the top 2 from that kind of a Humphrey Bogart era of Hollywood cinema: Casablanca, like with a bullet, number 1 out of that era for sure. Just a classic movie. It's just a good movie. I try to watch that movie at least once a year, and every time I watch it, I pick up on new themes or just themes that I didn't necessarily think about. Just a classic movie. And it's just nice to have a nice Scotch to it because it just puts you in a mood, that kind of an old school feel, just with the jazz piano and just kind of the smoky air and just beautifully shot.
It helps that most of the movie occurs in a bar.
Yeah, I mean that's also super helpful too.
And I'd also recommend if they're showing it, and if they're ever doing like a Fathom Events thing and they're showing it in the theater,
absolutely
do it in the theater because
I got the chance to do that.
Yeah, we did it for the 75th, and I know Anthony and I were living in different areas at the time, so we kind of coordinated with each other to go to the theater around the same time for the same viewing. And my biggest takeaway about Casablanca in a theater is how well that movie plays with a crowd.
Oh, absolutely.
That movie
is a whole new experience. New experience. Whole different experience for it. It was marvelous. It was just great to sit there. And again, for at least speaking for myself and my wife who took me, it was just like us and a bunch of like 70-year-old like men and women in the crowd. But it was so good. Like certain parts were not maybe necessarily I wouldn't have laughed at or chuckled at, like the audience would chuckle at. And I was like, oh, okay, I can see the humor of this now that's a bigger setting. Like, oh yeah, this is what makes sense.
And the screening that my fiance and I went to, it was a pretty packed house. Yeah. So that movie gets people in seats.
Oh, absolutely. It's a timeless classic.
Exactly.
And speaking of timeless classics, probably a number 2 on like second or fourth or however you want to put this, still from that era, just have a nice Scotch with. Honestly, it's a tie, which is shitty to say, but you know what? It's my rules and I'm playing by them. It's a tie between Big Sleep and Maltese Falcon, both classic Humphrey Bogart movies. Just great all around, just detective novels. I personally liked Big Sleep over Maltese Falcon. I think the story's a little bit better. I think the characters, Lauren Bacall's in it with Humphrey Bogart, and their chemistry just will blow you away. And I would say probably that over Maltese Falcon, but just Maltese Falcon gets an honorable mention just because it's a classic, your classic stereotypical, gumshoe detective story. But both of those are easy to enjoy. So it's kind of a tie for me, but if John's going to twist my arm in this, which he often does, I guess I would give the nod to Big Sleep.
So does that count as your 4th and 5th? You think?
Sure, at this point. Yeah.
Or do you want to just put your 5th as like Humphrey Bogart?
No, because I'll have to sit here and think of. And I have this list in front of me so well detailed, John. Obviously, I did my homework before coming into this podcast because I'm a responsible podcaster.
You're the most responsible podcaster I know. And also, you're a son bitch because you stole most of my list.
Yeah, I figured as much. That's why I wanted to go first.
You stole my thunder, which is not. I'm fine with it. I would put my 5th as Big Sleep because I think that it's like you said. There's a lot of it. You get to see a very the real world relationship of Bacall and Bogart kind of kick off there, and you can feel that magic, and it permeates throughout the whole movie. There's just like this electricity to that I think that the Maltese Falcon doesn't have. Maltese Falcon feels cold to me.
I see what you mean about feeling cold. It's definitely a little bit tighter, if that makes sense. It's definitely like everyone feels a little bit stiff. Though it still works and still great. Has one of my favorite shots at the end of the movie. I don't want to spoil it for anyone out there, but it has one of my favorite shots when a character is going down the elevator. And John, you probably know what scene I'm talking about. Where the character goes in the elevator and just the cinematography showing that this character, essentially because they find out who a murderer was, so the murderer is going to prison. And so the elevator doors signify like a bar, like the bar doors of a jail cell closing. It was just beautiful, just wonderfully shot. But yeah, Big Sleep definitely over that.
I think it also goes into the theme of where the source material for those two books. Because Raymond Chandler's Marlowe books, which The Big Sleep is one of them. They were known for that rat-a-tat-tat dialogue. Yeah, among other things, and type mysteries. But Hammett and Dashiell Hammett's books, they were always a lot. They had the same quality of dialogue because they're playing in similar genre, in the same genre. But I think there was a weight to Hammett's work that I think that I'm picking up as a little bit cold in the filmmaking. That I don't necessarily remember in the book, but it's been a while since I read the book.
It's been a while.
Since I've heard. You mind if I go with my number 4, and then we'll
go for it. Go for
it. For 4?
Yeah, go for it.
My number 4 is a movie directed by a gentleman named Paul Feig, and it is called A Simple Favor.
Okay.
My girlfriend and I, or fiance, I keep freaking doing that.
It's all right. It's understandable. You guys just got engaged a short time ago.
Yeah, I know. A Simple Favor stars Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick, and it's this mystery about. It's more of a kind of a neo-noir than a mystery, I would say, because it's Kendrick dealing with Blake Lively's character and her disappearance, and kind of dealing with the fallout of their friendship with each other and the disappearance and things that come with that. It's very funny, and when it gets heavy, but it's just something to just sit back and enjoy, because it's just the filmmaking is quality. The performances are completely excellent. It's like Anna Kendrick does a very great job at being, she's always super likable, but there's also you can sense the hurt in her character and the history that she's kind of buried. There's layers to her character work there. But the star of the show, honestly, is Blake Lively, because she's putting on a tour de force in smarmy but charming smartassery. Like if it was made in the golden age of Hollywood with Bogart, when Bogart was alive, I think Lively's character would be played probably by somebody like Bogart.
Yeah, I can see that.
I don't, because she has a similar kind of edge to her that I think Bogart had in some of the in the Marlowe movies and some of the Sam Spade movies. But yeah, that's my number 4. Anthony, what about you?
So I think I'm on 4 or 3 at this point. Sure, why not?
So Casablanca, Big Sleep. Yeah,
Big Sleep. Okay. I would say, honestly, John Wayne's Rio Bravo. It's not only is it a great movie to sip some scotch on, but essentially it's honestly top 5 movies all time for my personal list, which is a list we'll do at some other time, of course. Mm-hmm. But it's just a great movie. A lot of great themes in it. It's a standard, old 1950s, 60s cowboy flick with John Wayne, but there's so much depth into it as well. As far as the story goes with it, essentially John Wayne plays a sheriff in a town where it's just him and essentially one other person against a whole band of essentially like mobsters. This super wealthy person trying to take over the town, and the only person standing in this mobster's way is John Wayne and one other person, and the rich guy has like 30, 40 bodies, and you just see the struggles that goes with all of that. Great show, great flick, great movie. Just to kind of sit there, ease down with a glass of scotch next to you, and just kind of like go through the themes and just kind of chill out with it for sure.
So that we're on number 3.
Number 3/2, whatever.
Well, so it's
I screwed up my order, man. Like it's done. Casablanca,
Big Sleep,
and then we'll say my Rio Bravos. That's 3. So yeah, I'm down to number 2.
All right, so mine was Big Sleep and a Simple Favor.
Right.
So my number 3 is going to be Jackie Brown from Tarantino.
Nice pick. Excellent choice.
Honestly, I think I've been trying to reassess my opinion on Tarantino because, like, usually I would run out to go see his movies, but like I didn't go to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I will see it eventually, but I'm in like no rush for it. And I'm just like, I think Hateful Eight is a very smart movie, but I think that's the movie that broke me on Tarantino because it was just, I think it ultimately was too heavy and but it's not to disvalue it, but it's just like, I started to think as Tarantino as more flash, no substance, all meat, no potato. Or however the saying goes. I don't know which. But
yeah, no, that sounds right. I was picking up what you're throwing down.
I think that looking at my list, which I've so carefully crafted ahead of time. The one that stands out, Kill Bill stands out to me, but that's for a whole mess of complicated reasons, but it's not within our very sophisticated criteria of enjoying with Scotch.
Yes.
I think Jackie Brown falls into the kind of accidental theme of my list, which is these kind of complicated personal mysteries. Oh shit! Why is her name escaping me? Who's the lead in Jackie Brown? Pam Grier. There we go.
Yes,
Pam Grier.
There you go. I'm sorry, I know it's here somewhere.
That's just the story of my life. It's up here somewhere. I just got to wait for it to catch up. Pam Grier's performance. No one, I don't think, ever gave her the chance to do something that complicated. Yeah. And she fucking ran with it. What was his name? Robert, the guy, he just died, didn't he?
Jesus, what was his name?
Bob Forster. Robert Forster.
I would not have guessed that. Yes, but
Robert Forster. He was a wonderful character actor, and you saw him in a lot. You would, if you know his face, when you see his face, you'd know who it is because he's always like these fast talking smart guys. At least in my knowledge of him, but his performance in Jackie Brown is honestly sublime because it's just like he's so in love with her, and it's just so readily transparent on his face. Yeah, and the things that he's willing to do to keep her safe, and they complement each other so incredibly well. And you get, the brilliance of Sam Jackson in that movie. I think that's one of his finest roles.
Yeah, he was really good in Jackie Brown. Again, I haven't watched this movie in years, but I just remember a very good performance by Samuel L. for sure.
Yeah, and I think fucking Bob De Niro gets the best laugh in that movie. It's like another fucking word. Okay, boom. It's fucked up what happens. Yeah, and I wouldn't condone it in any way, but god damn, is it funny?
Yeah, super. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So that's my number 3. Anthony, what is your number 2?
That would be Star Wars: A New Hope.
Really?
Yes. Now hear me out on it.
Okay.
Because this is a film that a lot of people have already seen, right?
Yeah.
So again, for myself personally, I've seen this movie 75 times. Probably not even an exaggeration, honestly. And I didn't realize how good of a movie it was to sit and watch until a few years back when I was living in the grand old state of Iowa, where it was just randomly, like on a Friday night, I just popped it in and I had a bottle of Scotch. So I poured myself a nice glass. I was like, I just want to watch some Star Wars. And just everything was hitting, like from your introduction to good old Ben Kenobi to just everything, just like the lines, everything was just hitting, making me feel this nice kind of a warm, fuzzy place. And so it's not like a more sophisticated pick, like my earlier picks of the Humphrey Bogart films, but just something about it, man. Like it just hits. Everything hits on it for me. Like, and it was nothing better than just reciting lines that I've heard 1,000 times or 75 times since I've watched the movie that many times, and just reciting lines right back to the film at the same time. It was a nice like little icing on the cake kind of a moment for me.
Yeah. All right, I can buy it. And I probably will. We'll probably do that exact same thing sometime in the future.
No, for sure. And then you can just see the beauty of what I'm talking about, man.
Yeah. I mean, I trust your word on most things, so I trust your word now.
Well, that would be your folly. I don't know where that came from.
Oh, don't worry, I have the high ground.
That's prequel trilogy, John.
I know, but we love it so much, even if it's bad movies.
We love like 2 parts out of that whole prequel trilogy.
Yeah. You ever hear the story about Topher Grace recut, or who's the fucking guy from that?
Oh, you had it. Topher Grace, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, John, I have never heard this story. Let's please have you tell it to our loyal listeners.
Have you ever heard that he edited the prequels into like one giant movie?
No, but it's like an hour and a half. I did not know that. We did not have this conversation off air ever. Please elaborate.
No, it's a short story, but it's just I heard he did this.
Yeah, no, he did like a lengthy cut of the prequel trilogy, and it was actually pretty good. I think I saw it on YouTube.
I don't know. Did it release? I don't remember it releasing.
I thought I remember seeing snippets of it online.
Maybe. I might have to look that up when we're off the air just to see if I'm not going crazy. But I mean, yeah. I mean, we'll have a dedicated Star Wars episode at some point.
Oh, for sure. Like that's got to be one.
It has to be. My number 2, and I think I'm going to get a little bit I think heavy. I might do I do what you do and put 2 movies, or do I just do one? I'm having issues. Fuck it, I'll just do one. That has been your internal monologue moment with John.
There we go. It was perfect.
Was it though? Was it?
It was, John. I enjoyed it.
I'm going to talk about a movie called Enemy. It is directed by future or current Dune director Denis Villeneuve. Dune. Enemy is one of Denis Villeneuve's earlier works. It stars Jake Gyllenhaal as a college history professor who sees an exact doppelganger of himself in a random movie, and his life unravels from that. And It's a very cerebral movie.
Okay.
It doesn't go where you think. It's one of those movies where you're going to have to look up the ending so that you can get some kind of explanation.
Interesting.
It's the movie that made me appreciate Jake Gyllenhaal as an actor, because when you first meet his character, the first guy, his character, the first, the other, not doppelganger, and you see kind of how pathetic he feels, and then you cut to the suaver, cooler, richer version, and you see him work off of himself,
Right.
You just have to sit back and appreciate the craft that he's bringing, and his female co-stars. I'll just look up the movie just so I can give these people their due credit. One of them actually worked with Tarantino. She played the French woman who survived Christoph Waltz's character. Yeah. I forget the character's name, but the actress is Melanie Laurent, and she's involved with the doppelganger, and the original guy's wife is played by a woman, I believe, Sarah Gaden, and their performances, as how they relate to these different versions of Jake Gyllenhaal are fascinating, because one is pregnant. I won't say who, and it's just like dealing kind of with this person who is supposed to be present, but he's not the most present because he's preoccupied. And they both people, that Gyllenhaal plays, they end up being preoccupied by each other's existence, and it, flows back into their personal lives outside of each other. So it's an interesting character study. It's probably going to be one of those movies, Anthony, where you tell me, John, thank you for that movie, but fuck you for that movie, like you did with American Psycho.
Fair enough.
Because that's one of the proudest moments I have in my movie history in showing friends shit. Was showing you and all our friends American Psycho, and you just turned to me, John, thank you for that movie, but fuck you for that movie.
Oh, I remember that, man. That was a hell of a ride, all the way through from start to finish.
Oh my god,
from start to finish, man.
That's a great fucking movie.
It's a great movie.
Great fucking movie.
But for me, not a Scotch movie, because I only have one selection left. And that selection is going to Blade Runner the second.
2049.
Yes, because I forgot that. I was going to say 2099. Was like, no, wait, isn't that Spider-Man?
Yeah, that is a Spider-Man. We talked about it a little bit at the top of the episode, but we didn't really get deep into 2049. So
no, it's not only is it a direct sequel to a great staple in science fiction as far as the cinematic universe, and does it well. But it just, again, with the special effects that they do, just how that movie breathes. And by breathes, I mean it's just like the panning shots of just the environment, whether it be like inside of the city, when Joe goes into Las Vegas, essentially looking for Decker, that whole casino scene, and just even the scene where he's just, inside of his own apartment, essentially, like just how that movie just has these wide berths, essentially.
And it feels, where it's also a future that's based off of the 1980s perception of what 2019 would have been. So, it's not the world that we know or will know, but what I appreciated was that how lived in 2049.
Exactly.
It felt like the same thing with Star Wars. It's just like Star Wars. Everyone says that you feel the age
Yeah.
of the world that people live in. And
yeah, you feel like this universe has been established for a while. You feel like you're just taking a sneak peek into all this entire world that just has this rich history that you're just getting glimpses of. And it's a tease because you want to know every little aspect of it, but you just get these little glimpses into it. And you have to pick up all these little minor things on the world in your perception of it. And it's what's great about it is that my perception of this world maybe would not be the same perception that you would have, or your friend would have, or your aunt would have, or anything like that. It's your own personal little look into this world and what it means to you and what you believe it to be. So just with all those things, it's a nice, just cool. I just love the different elements, the cool neon sci-fi look, and just having that with a nice, good glass of ice scotch on the rocks just puts you in a good time place, man.
Yeah, and I mean what I appreciated, like the Elvis sequence, is and it is transcendent for me. It was just like I wasn't expecting it, and it's just like this is what Vegas would have done. Yeah. It feels like what Vegas would have done, but it also feels it's so. I think I appreciate the on the nose of it, because it's like it's Suspicious Minds. It opens. The song, that's how the song opens. We're caught in a trap.
Yeah,
I can't walk out, and it's just like a beautiful reflection of what Joe is dealing with in that moment.
Exactly.
And the other thing I loved about that movie is how he and Joy interacted, because the Ryan Gosling and Ana de Armas were incredible together.
Absolutely.
Anthony, I imagine you felt like me. It's like you felt when you come to the resolution of what their story is. It's heartbreaking because it's just
so much.
You wanted so much more for them, and it's just like they I won't spoil it per se, but it's just like it's a perfect tragedy for what that universe usually gives.
Yeah, exactly. And just the ending, like I remember how I mentioned earlier, where it's just like the first walkthrough of the movie, the first viewing of it, would leave you scratching your head. But that second viewing of it, when you actually watch it, it hits a lot harder, it hits a lot differently. And just the ending scene, again, I'm not going to spoil it, but the ending scene that where it's the camera's focused on Joe at the end, just hit a lot differently on that second view than it did for me on the first one, for sure.
I wonder what it would feel like if you did double feature it with the original, like you were doing it back to back.
Oof.
I wonder if you need the time between the two to kind of dissect.
I think you need the time, honestly. I think you need the time between the two to really kind of let it breathe, just because I think it would be such a stark difference from the first to the second. And although some of the themes are kind of the same, and that would still relate, so the themes that they play in the first Blade Runner as opposed to the sequel of it are a little bit different. There's not as much. I'm trying not to spoil both movies. I'm really not.
I would say that the original has to deal with a lot more ambiguity on certain things, depending on the cut that you watch, and that's the
problem too.
With the original Blade Runner, at least, it's just like there's too many different freaking versions because the movie studio thought people were dumb. Just watch the final cut. That's all you need to know. Just watch the final cut. Go from there. That's all anybody needs to know. That's I don't know how that's complicated, but whatever. But that's what I think kind of one of the defining things about the original is that you have to deal with ambiguity. And I think that 2049 deals with ambiguity to an extent, but there are certain things that are definite and they're given to you straight up, as opposed to what the original does, where you have to live with some ambiguity. I think that you're dealing more with in 2049 the cost of all of this to Joe. What is this costing him? What is he losing? What is he gaining? Where does he what does he where does he end up after doing all of this?
Yeah.
Is it worth it to him? Do you know if it's worth it to him? Those are the kind of things I think you get from 2049.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So overall, if you haven't seen either of the movies, it's definitely worth your time. Please watch them. The first one has been a staple of science fiction for a while. I mean, a long period of time, lengthy period of time. Go check it out. You won't be disappointed, or you might, and then you'll hate me. But go give it a check, man.
Either way, it'll give you something to think about.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All right, John. So that leaves us with your top film.
My top film. I was circling between two movies. I'll name them. The original John Wick and No Country for Old Men. And I don't know where to land.
I can see it on your first choice, John Wick, but the second choice I'm a little puzzled by, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was more along the lines of it being a little bit more heavier, more like Enemy. But I think at the end of the day, I have to pick the wonder that is John Wick, because and this is something that's specific to that first movie. There is a magic to that first John Wick, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And it makes me wonder if it's the law of diminishing returns with the sequels, because even though I've enjoyed them, there was a visible exhaustion when it came to the third one. When my fiance and I went to go see it in the theater, because it was just like, at first everyone was just like, excited and going ooh and ah, the various whatevers that John Wick did to people. But eventually people just shut up and we're just sitting there watching it all happen. But with the first one, it's cool. It's smooth. It's got power to it, just like anything you'd want in a good Scotch,
Yeah.
And I think you get, it gets heavy because, you're dealing with, the whole revenge plot of, you kick my dog, I kill you.
Fair.
Right. And, John dealing with his own, grief and guilt over his wife. But I mean, it's fun. It's, you get Keanu being the ultimate badass, taking like everything that was like later Neo and some of his other characters and kind of melding it into this like James Bond-ish rapper. And you get such a rich world out of this assassin community. You get this badass hotel that caters to this crowd, and there's mystery and intrigue, and you don't really necessarily know if the person around the corner is a friend or a foe. Like one of my favorite parts about that movie is when he beats Adrian Palicki's assassin who got paid to kill John, and he comes out into the hallway, and he sees another assassin. And they're like, "Oh, hey, how you doing? You got a problem?" Like, no, not really. Okay, wait, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
And it's like you appreciate like the unspoken history, and it's just like you get the comedy behind it, but you also get to the whole. They clearly thought this out, and there's weight to it. So that's my number one. I hope that I'll keep going to see these movies, because I think the Keanu's great, and the story I think is fascinating, but I can see the diminishing returns, and I'm just afraid that it might turn into like a bad like nobody wants to be Rambo, like Stallone doing all these.
Oh, I was gonna one up you and say the Fast and Furious franchise at this point.
I mean, that shit, Fast and Furious turned into fucking like Jean-Claude Van Damme ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Right?
But it has its following, man. Like, there are people that are just die-hard Fast and Furious. Like, that's their bag.
I mean, I tried watching that Hobbs and Shaw movie, and it was just like, I was a little bored. It was like all this action. It was just like,
You're like, okay.
It's like these things happen, and it's just. I think the other problem is that I went into it, not having seen a lot of those movies. I'm like you watch it for the charisma of The Rock. I think The Rock is the drawing factor in that movie.
That's fair. I mean, he's a huge bankable movie star right now. Like, it's.
I mean, he usually is. Like those Jumanji movies are fucking great.
Yeah, I agree. Had a good time with them for sure.
Yeah, and part of it is seeing The Rock kind of work outside of his comfort zone while working within his comfort zone.
Yeah,
because he has to play specific characters while being a badass. But it's like Fast and the Furious. It's just like it's become more and more of a blatant cartoon, and it's just like it has its following. It's not working for me. That's just the long part of it.
No, that's totally fair. No, so overall, I feel like we had a really good set of films there. So
honestly, I'm expecting a lot more crossover between the two of us.
Yeah, we started getting that way, and then like towards our higher up picks, or our last few picks, we kind of diverted a little bit. But that's overall, knowing the both of us, like they all make sense, right? All the films kind of make sense. We can kind of see each other's point on that. What we recommend here at the Ludic Loungecast is that if you haven't checked out those films, please do so. And if you just find yourself happening to have a nice bottle of Scotch, you'll be in a good time place.
Exactly. And if you do watch those movies, please let us know in the our Facebook page for the Ludic Lounge. And,
absolutely. Or on Twitter at the Ludic Lounge.
Which we need to make.
I actually have. I actually did make it. Yeah,
do we?
I have it. Yeah, I made it already. Or if you just so happen to want to email us for either show ideas, show topics, you can just find us at theludiclounge@gmail.com. You can just go ahead and send us an email, topics, ideas. If you want to tell us how bad we are at this, that's great too. We're always good at taking good criticism.
We also are good at taking money, so if you have donations, we'll probably take it.
Well, we'll leave you with a smile on your face.
Exactly. Disclaimer, we won't take your money.
So anyway, folks, for John, for good old Johnny, for myself, Anthony, we thank you for your time. Thanks for spending this time with us.
Thanks for lounging with us.
Thanks for lounging with us. Way better of a send-off. Be safe. Stay indoors. Be safe.
Wash your goddamn hands.
And wash your goddamn hands.
Wear your goddamn mask. Don't be a fucking carrier. All right? We'll change.